We essentially started the revolution that is now women's wrestling. We've been putting our blood, our sweat, our tears into this division. So when people say that there's a revolution happening right now in women's wrestling, it's been happening for nearly a decade. And it's because of the knockouts. When you think about the knockouts division, you think about strength. You think about women who are athletes, who are strong. What Ronda Rousey is doing for mixed martial arts in the UFC is what the knockouts division has been doing for professional wrestling for well over 8 years.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hey folks, welcome to another quick vlog by Mr. Green for the WPN. If you caught the beginning of this video, provided that YouTube hasn't clipped the opening portion of it, you got to see an original promo from TNA, now known as Impact Wrestling, which was airing for the Knockouts back in the days when the Knockouts were a pretty important factor of that organization. And following that, you got a clip, a little bit of a snippet of a promo that Madison Rayne recently did, addressing the revolution, as it is now being called, of women's sports, athletics, wrestling in particular, because in most cases when we talk about this revolution, is being related to the Divas revolution. And I wasn't going to bring it into, you know, anything that we was going to do on this channel, but bravo for her. You know, I don't know if Impact Wrestling put her up to it. I don't know if that's how she genuinely feels. My guess would be that she does. But bravo to Madison Rayne for actually speaking up and calling out a fact. And it is an absolute fact. That revolution has been going on for about 10 years now. It's just that the WWE is getting to a point to catch up to it. The fact that they're now just seeing that the women could be something viable, or that they can do something important, or that we can use them in main events and things like that, that by and large isn't anything new. At the time when Impact Wrestling was on its rise, and yeah, I know that's kind of hard for some people to accept at this point, but there was a point in time when Impact Wrestling was on the rise, or TNA as a brand was on the rise. One of the big factors in that is that they were providing something to the people that was completely different. They gave wrestling fans the things that the WWE wasn't going to give them. Hence the term that they were the new alternative in professional wrestling. WWE wasn't going to give you a tag team division. TNA was. WWE wasn't going to, accentuate the high-flying wrestling style. Then TNA was going to give you the X division. They were going to have supermodels and people wrestling for them for their women's division. Then TNA went out and got skilled wrestlers off the independent circuit, and they put a spotlight on them and they focused around them. Before you knew it, they were the highest rated things in the entire program. They were drawing numbers. So when Madison Rayne says that there was a revolution almost 10 years in the running now, I completely and wholeheartedly agree with that statement, especially based on the idea that the ratings reflected it. When you were talking about TNA, or Impact Wrestling, as it was, the program was known as Impact Wrestling at the time. The organization is known as that now. But Impact Wrestling as a program, the knockouts were really cleaning up. And you had such a talented roster of knockouts. I mean, at that particular time. And I'm talking, around 2008, 2000, well, between 2008 and 2010, because 2010 is when the legs got chopped out from underneath it, and that's a whole different issue. But you had such a talented roster. You had Velvet Sky, you had Gail Kim, who speaks for herself. ODB, who gave you something different. Awesome Kong, who on American soil you really hadn't seen anything like her. Taylor Wilde, who is immensely talented, and I hate that she let that organization just rob the passion of wrestling away from her. Angelina Love. Mickey James did come in later on. Tara, who I feel, and again, that's another case of she had a bad time there with the organization dealing with certain people, Dixie Carter in particular. But I think that overall she had some of the best matches of her career. Like really, it reinvigorated who she was inside the ring. She was no longer looked at as the one that we put into the ring for comedy's sake or to give the girls a good match. Nothing wrong with that. But she came into Impact Wrestling and she was a top tier girl, somebody that you were going to look at seriously. And I'm probably missing a bunch of other people that's been in and out of the Knockouts roster during that time. But the point being is that around that time, they were wrestling as hard as anybody could possibly wrestle. I mean, that, and I get all due respect to the Divas division. They've tried and they're still trying. I don't think they found their foothold in it yet. But they tried and they keep continue to try to push this revolution. NXT has basically got it. Bailey versus Sasha Banks, Sasha Banks versus Charlotte, the four-way that had all four horsewomen in it. Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch, Charlotte versus Natalia from sometime last year. I mean, they have pretty much got it in the idea that we're going to let our girls go out there and they're going to go, and we're going to let them give the fans everything that they could possibly give. Well, the Knockouts were doing that at some point. Now, all of them couldn't. I'm not gonna say couldn't. All of them did not do uh, the things that you see a Bailey or a Sasha Banks doing now. You got a few of them that did. That'll do a suicide dive or hit a moonsault or go through a table. I mean, they had it, and it's not like they didn't have the people in there that were capable of doing it. Hamada, she did a moonsault from the top rope to the floor onto a table to hit Alyssa Flash, I believe. Who we now know as or knew then and now know as Cheerleader Melissa. So, the roster was deep, the talent was there. They had the means to push this quote revolution a long time ago. And I said it at the beginning, I say it now, I completely agree with Madison Rayne. That revolution has been going on for a long time. You can go back even further than that if you wanted to take it away from the mainstream of women's wrestling. I would say you can go back to Shimmer. The WWE Divas did not invent that hard hitting, fast paced wrestling style that we've come to recognize on NXT today. In fact, just given the idea that you have a trainer in there with Sarah Del Rey, who is one of the real faces of women wrestling on the independent circuit some time ago, should speak volumes in terms of how and why they do the things that they do right now. Um, Side note, I think Sarah Del Rey had one of the absolute all-time great matches from that first volume of Shimmer when she took on one of my other favorites, Mercedes Martinez. I thought it was an outstanding match. So it's not even knowing her, I can only assume that she is not going to accept fluff or a fluff match from anybody that's going to walk into that building or through those doors. If you're going to be one of her girls, you're going to work at it. Uh, so all of that to say, you could trace this quote revolution back a long ways, but on a national platform, I would say that Impact Wrestling TNA was the innovator. That the only downside to this entire thing is that they either were incapable or unwilling to capitalize on that push, on the idea that the women were leading the ratings for their show, on the idea that people were actually interested in the knockouts division, on the idea that they had stars that they could make and they could probably try and build around it. I personally believe, and I'm sure, uh, let me just give full disclosure, I have nothing that I'm basing this on beyond, what I see. I'm not getting this from people that I interviewed or that I talked to from behind the scenes. But I really feel like somebody within that company just did not want to see the knockouts take front and center to that program. I really believe that to some degree, that somebody there probably was willing to chop the legs out from underneath it just to, get the show where they wanted it. And if you're going to ask me what are you basing that off of, I'm basing it off of the fact that as soon as 2010 rolled over, all of that just went away. A lot of them either fired or quit. And I'm not saying that Hogan or Bischoff was directly responsible for that. I'm just saying that it coincides with their entry into the company, and all of a sudden, everything that made the Knockouts division what it was just died. Um, Not to say that they didn't have some issues kind of leading into that. I think pay had been an issue prior to that point, but having the girls suddenly get a little bit more diva-like, I think the last remnant of the Knockouts division, once that turnover happened, was basically the beautiful people and Tara, I think. So you had all former divas suddenly headlining or being the front and center for the Knockouts division. Or I shouldn't say all former divas, because Talia Madison, aka Velvet Sky, and Madison Rayne weren't former divas, but they had the diva look. Is basically what I was getting at. At that point, Madison Rayne was rocking the blonde hair. You had Lacey Von Erich, who admittedly was not a good wrestler, and she had a job, whereas Awesome Kong was gone, No DB was gone, Taylor Wilde had been, she had felt like she had enough. I think Sarita was taking a back seat at that point until they had repackaged her as part of Mex America. The tag team division that they created within the Knockouts suddenly became less important. There's a bunch of things, and it's a real shame. It is a horrible shame that Impact Wrestling allowed whatever it was to make them lose the momentum, because at this point, even though Madison Rayne said it in the promo, even though I am, and probably several other people that could get up and back them up and say, yeah, the Impact had a revolution before there was a revolution. Even though there are a lot of people that can say that, not many people are going to go and buy into it. They're always going to go, hey, well, the WWE did that. And Impact Wrestling doesn't really have a leg to stand on as far as that is concerned, unfortunately, because they didn't stick with it. They didn't stick with the idea that, man, we have something special here. We could really make this thing work. They could have legitimately told the world, hey, we were ahead of this long before the WWE saw any value in women wrestlers. And they did, but they let it go. Or they allowed somebody to come in there and convince them to let it go. I mean, to this day, they are the only nation or national wrestling promotion that has pursued an all female pay per view in some shape, form, or fashion. WWE hasn't done that yet. And they are the only ones that have released a full DVD dedicated to their girls. WWE hasn't done that yet. They haven't brought out a DVD for the women. Although I would guess that with them under this Divas Revolution umbrella, that there's probably some version of home video that's going to come out in the near future. I mean, I can't imagine that they would not jump on that. That's one thing you can say about the WWE for the most part, is that when something's there and it's making money and they decide to stick with it, they'll jump on it. So I would imagine that some variation of a Divas Revolution DVD, hell, that might be the name of it, Divas Revolution, will be released. But up until this point, I mean, the Knockouts DVD or home video is the only one that I've seen, and they continue to push the Knockouts pay-per-view, even though it doesn't get the full attention that it should get. All of that to say is that Impact Wrestling did bring it first, and the downslide is that they let it go, man. They let it go, and I hate that they did that. It could have been the one thing that they could have legitimately held over top of the WWE's head, and they really can't even do that now. But we'll end with the bottom line, and I hope that it gets around to Madison Rayne. Bravo for her for bringing it up. Because Madison, I will say this to you, if you ever happen to come across this particular podcast, I totally and completely agree, and I hope that Impact Wrestling gets back on it, because the Knockouts division was a fantastic division, and they could be a fantastic division again. That's it, folks. I just wanted to put that out there for real quick. Just a little bit of a blog on the agreement to what the Knockouts were in the landscape of professional wrestling. If you haven't done it yet, hey, please stop by our Facebook page and give us a like. We would more than love to have you there. Every bit of support that you show on whatever platform that we have counts. The WPN on wrestling on Twitter, WPN Wrestling website, WPNWrestling.com. You can go there and stop through and browse around a couple of things. There are a few updates that are happening. We're stretching out the profile page. Like I said, stop by the Facebook page. If you are catching this particular set of audio outside of YouTube, then go over to YouTube and subscribe, man. If you listen to this and you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to us, just give a subscription to this channel. We'd love to have you. We drop out fresh matches as often as we can. Blogs and interviews always coming. We're working on a couple of other interviews right now from some wrestlers that have come back out of retirement. I don't want to start shooting off names, because if they if it falls through the cracks, then it would have hurt me. But if you are looking for other ones, you can also go through our archives, check out the interview that we have with two other, I don't want to say retirees, but people that have kind of had their day in the wrestling business. Shelly Martinez is here. Amy Janice, she's online where you can catch her. Some people, or most people, know her as Lorelei Lee. You can catch some of our interviews with some of the WOW superstars. Hopefully that organization will be back online eventually. Who knows when. Frost, Lana Starr, Erica Porter, aka Jungle Girl. We have that. And of one of the great legends in the wrestling industry. She's doing a shoot interview somewhere now, I think for our video, but you can get a lot of that information and interview for free right here by clicking on to Dark Journey. It's right down, scroll down there and listen to some of her stories, how she got into the business, how her time it was in Mid-South, how it was dealing with fans during that day when kayfabe was still rocking and still strong, and of course, why exactly she did not go to the WWE. So you can get all that information straight from here, and you don't have to pay a penny for it. It's all free. Thanks a lot for listening to this, folks. We'll catch you next go. Stay tuned, subscribe. You'll get all the videos when they hit, and we will see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys.